Amen. That's a few things I want to do, amen, and I have to do it because I'm led to do it. And I'm going to ask Pastor Woods and Pastor Jack to come forward at this time. And I just want them to stand here before you. And just want to give an opportunity. If there may be one here today and you say, you know, we have pastors here, and I want to ask this question. Because I'm a firm believer in anytime you're taught something, most times you're going to have questions, right? And as the teacher should be able to answer that question. So there might be something that the Lord has laid upon your heart or something that's on your mind. And you say, I just want to ask Pastor, you know, I just want to ask you this question that you hear. Maybe something that they said, something that, you know, that sparked your attention as they shared it. And I want you to share that question with these pastors here so that they can answer those questions. Now, I put them on the spot, amen, but I know they're studied up, they're prayed up, and they're ready to answer. And they have an answer for you. So if there's one here today and you want to ask those questions, I want you to do that at this time. Don't be shy. Don't be bashful. This is for information. This is for teaching. And I want us to use this time for that. And what you'll find is sometimes the question you had, many times somebody else wanted to ask that question, but you weren't brave enough to ask it, so somebody else asked it and you get your answer. So is there one on today? I want you to stand and give you a question at this time. I know I put you on the spot. You may not have written anything down. You may say, you know what, I got all the answers, Pastor. But if that's you, would you stand and give that question at this time? Youth as well. We don't want to leave anyone out as they stand here at this time. Amen. Anybody? Nobody? Somebody? There we go. There we go. Amen.
And it's just a general question. Okay, you know, I've been in church all my life. And when you go to especially Black Baptist churches, you probably see more women than they have men. As pastors, what are some of the challenges, or how do you reach out to those women that you know got somebody that they either left at home or a husband that won't come to church? Or what is the root of that problem? Why black men, women are coming to church, by and large, if you can make the comparison, it's always the wife or the woman, whatever. But you know many of them are not single. And well, today they might, you know, like you talked about, they may have another woman, you know, something like that. But something's wrong. And Pastor Carter talks about it all the time. Is because, you know, many times, well, first of all, salvation is an issue because they're not saved. But he talks about how sometimes a woman's husband or boyfriend, they have an issue with the man of God because the man of God will tell them to come to Bible study, they come. Tell them to come to church, they come. And at the home, they don't tell them to do anything, they won't do it. So what's the answer to that? Or what's some of the issues or challenges that you've seen in your churches to help draw black men, and I'm talking about us today, you know, into your churches? Kyle, I'm sure the same thing. You could answer too.
A couple of things. One is, the way I deal, when I preach to men and women, so I'm very careful about verbiage. And I never say my sermons or lessons, child, let me tell you, baby, let me tell you, because that's not appealing to a man. I tell the ladies at the church, if you have someone at home, don't go home and good mouth people, bad mouth around. Because as men, we have egos. If you go home and say, oh, Pastor Jack is something special, I love Pastor Jack, well, another man takes offense to that. All you say is, I'm being blessed by the word, I'd like for you to meet my pastor, he loves football, come and meet him. Because sometimes a woman can magnify the pastor so much, and as men, we take offense to that. Saul did with David. The lady said, Saul killed thousands, but David killed 10,000. We have an ego. So that's something I encourage a woman not to do. Don't magnify me, but magnify the word. And give me an opportunity to meet your husband, significant other, so I can reach him and hopefully win him over to Christ.
Was that specifically to just men in general, or ladies who have husbands who stay at church, stay with church?
Well, both. You know, just how do we get black men in church? You know, and you know, and sometimes, like Reverend Jack said, sometimes, you know, I believe that you got to catch fish before you clean them. Sometimes we don't know how to meet them where they are. some been, you know, they come into church and we expect them to whatever, but where do you meet them? How do you meet them where they are?
Well, men are a different breed because we're territorial.
Yeah.
And if, first of all, they're on football fields, they're playing baseball, and we're gonna have to go get them, number one. Number two is, especially with the wives, and we try to instruct them that just live the life. Don't go back home and say, Pastor, say your husband this. No, go back home and say, like, the pastor said, I gotta be a submissive wife. And then, because brother, like, well, I gotta go see who this is. He happened, you know what I'm saying? So it has to be taught how to minister, because, like you said, they'll say they love their pastor. The brother's like, so that's the same thing. And I think one of the problems is too in church with the men is that I know I had the problem. I'm learning now in my pastorage is that we don't take the time to disciple men in small groups. We'll speak to the mass, but Jesus took 12. And he worked with them, and he disciplined them. He got them to be followers of him. And so I think we have to do a better job in the church of taking men and mentoring them and discipling them in a whole, so that they can, if you got Pastor Carter, Pastor Sylvester, the different pastors, if you got 10 men like you in the church, you can make a tremendous impact. So I think a lot of times we speak to the mass when we need to kind of grab maybe 10 men, so many men, and really disciple them, and so that those 10 can take a man with them until, just keep growing men like that, because men are prideful, men are private, men are just men, and you gotta understand how to minister to men. And like we're here, we want to keep it real. We want to talk, just keep it real with them, because we see through things. Right. We feeling things, and we're like, man, I ain't feeling this. So it's being authentic, it's being real, it's about discipling. So it's a lot of dynamics too. But it's a great question.
Amen.
Pastor, you talked to a lot of brothers, and the first thing they saying, man, preachers up there, they talking one thing and living another. Like I tell them, I say, God, what you bring, bring something to get something. And a lot of them talking about money. Well, we still got to take care of business. It's sometimes I try to get in some of the conversation with them, but I don't want them to think we more than them or we perfect. We're not perfect. You pastors up here, y'all teaching and preaching. I wake up every morning, I come that crossroad in my life every day. And I just hope and pray that God just keeps guiding. And one day at a time. But some of these brothers that's out there now, they don't want to vote, but they want to have an opinion about government. We got to step up to the game. And I know y'all got a hard job. I pray for y'all all the time. But, all I can say to y'all guys is keep on pushing. Thank you.
Amen.
I'm just going to add to that. Most men, a lot of men, we deal with trying to be in control. We have a lot of, issues with that. And we don't like sometimes submitting. Women will submit more than men. And many times, sometimes if you have a preacher who's kind of, who, how can I put it? It's going to stand and be unapologetic. It may be hard for some men, because of what they'll say the question, well, who does he think he is? Right? So a lot of men, until the Lord has to really, let's be real, literally break most men before they actually surrender and say, you know what? I need what he's sharing. I need church. I need to be in fellowship. And many times it has to do with that whole surrendering. Women are more, let's be honest, more submissive in a lot of ways than men. And Pastor said it. They'll go home and, you know, Pastor said this, and Pastor said that, and Pastor, and they're looking at you like, well, doggone, well, Pastor can get you to do that. Why do you want to do that? You know, but at the same time, I think it has a lot to do with falling underneath another man's authority.
Right.
You know, and really doing it God's way. And it really takes what? The Holy Spirit for them to actually fall in line with that whole idea of being submissive to authority. Yeah. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Close this question.
Yeah.
I want to say this, and that, you know, it gets me in trouble, but they're right. They're right. A lot of times, and I thank God for these men, but a lot of times, we as pastors, we as deacons, we as church members live such a hypocritical life.
Amen.
And I was saved. I mean, I was unsaved, and I had two ideas of the preacher: money and women. Forget my pastor. He went to the Burger King, and I'm like spying on my pastor, because I mean, you don't just tell me anything. I got to figure. You know, I want to know. I'm a person. You tell me something, I'm going to go to the extent to find it out. So I'm like following him. I'm gonna see this to real when he preached. And man, never forget, he drove up to Burger King and went to the phone booth and got on the phone booth and called somebody. I said, knew it. I just knew he was calling the one. Okay. I said, I knew it. I knew it. That's all the preachers want, women. And about 5 minutes later, another preacher drove up to Burger King and
Come
was
meet
having
with him.
coffee. So he was calling that brother to come
meet.
meet. Because, you know, back then, phone booths, most of the kids don't even know what phone booth is. They had phone booths. And you had to tell your mama, give you a quarter, they'll take with you. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But here's what I want to say to us, and I want to say this as pastors, as brothers. We got to quit selling people short as Christians and unsaved. We got churches now who will not preach the truth, right? Because we are sold out. Here's our validation. Here's what our validation is. Our validation is who show up on Sunday morning. If the crowd is there, we're validated. If the crowd is not there, we feel like we failed. Okay? And then we won't say too much because we want them to keep coming to validate our ministries. And we know sometimes that people are not, even ourselves, are not right. You know, and I, you know, even, because I'm talking about myself, I'm a pastor as well. But we and Christians, we're called to a life of holiness. And that means to be consecrated, set aside for the righteous. Will we sin? Yes, we will sin. But we confess those sins, we live up to them, and we try to do what's right. You feel what I'm saying? And so when we come here on Sunday, we live like hell all week long, put on our suits on Sunday morning, and then act all holy. And folks see us living. And you got a generation now, I told you, they don't have a problem with Jesus. They got a problem with the church. Are you catching that? So a lot of times it's because of the way we live. And you got a transparent generation, they put all their business on Facebook. I'm talking about everything. And y'all know the old generation, man, what goes on in the home, stay in the home. And man, them children lost their mind, but they don't have no shame in their game. And you know what? They cool if you don't do what's right, as long as you admit it. And they can identify. But when you be doing things and you try to act like you ain't doing this and you ain't doing that, they will call you to the car. And so they don't want to have a part of it. And I think as the church, we have to get back to the very basics of Christianity, and that's living for God, just loving people. You don't have to love everything you're doing, but just loving. Okay. Man, before Jesus arrived, the multitude was waiting on him. because the fame of Jesus went out. And they heard about a man who was healing the sick, and so the crowd was there, man, and he had compassion on them. But folk here may hear about how good Jesus is, and we go out witnessing and sharing it, and they walk through those days, and folk will tell them, you know, what you doing? You don't dress like this. You don't come in the dark, you know, and all these things. So and then the word, just like the fame go out, the negative things go out. And so we are. Here's my word to it. We are institutionalized, and not spiritualized. And so if we don't do things institutional, we out of our element and we are unconfident. But God, he wasn't institutionalized. He messed up the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You know, they tear out the root. He said, just bring them to me. You feel what I'm saying? So we gotta get back to the very fundamentals. That first century church, they had favor with God, with man, and people were being saved, such as should be saved. And we got churches, sometimes we don't even baptize. We don't, nobody come to Christ. Something's wrong with that picture. Because last time I checked, he hadn't ceased to be God. He's still God. He's still healing. He's still saving. He's still doing this. And so we have to really examine ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with being there, but it's something wrong with being there and not acknowledging you there. So I think church needs revival.
Yes.
And it begins with us.
Amen. Amen. Any others? Any others?
Opinion. Okay, go ahead.
I have one thing to say. I've been to a lot of churches, and I notice a lot of things. They don't greet the young men when they come to church. Brothers just go out the door and go home. They don't. If we learn to embrace these people that come in and we don't recognize in our church, shake our hands, show some kind of friendship. If we don't embrace them, the street don't embrace them. They don't. Most churches don't even give altar calls no more. They just preach what they got to preach, collect the money, and go about their business. They close the doors without even trying to bring a soul to the altar. We lose them because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Like you said, got to get back to fundamental. We got to get back to the beginning where the church was a church. Yeah. I remember growing up in church. I don't care if we was in church for 4 hours. We had to give altar call before we leave. Yeah. You know, and you don't see them in the churches no more.
Can I say something? And I don't think so much as an altar call.
But to me, that's an embracing.
But here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say. You can give an altar call,
right?
But if your altar call is not
Genuine.
Right.
Genuine. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about, institutionalized. If we don't do certain things, we feel like we've missed God. Well, God, I can get saved on the street. I can get saved here. I can get saved anywhere. Okay. My point of it is that the church has to have the law kills the spirit. It just so a lot of times with our rules and regulations, we kill the spirit from moving. And so the preacher may preach and the spirit is so high. And I'm just saying, kind of giving liberty to the spirit of God to operate in the body. And I'm not talking about something crazy and wild, but I'm talking about we don't have to be so programmed.
Right.
So that if we miss something, okay, let's say the Lord's Supper. If the Lord's Supper every second Sunday, and the church is going, Pastor Jack and y'all coming to meet us, and y'all say, well, we're not going to have Lord's Supper this Sunday because we're going to Lake Charles and we're going to have a big fellowship. Man, some folks are loose. And when the Bible clearly says, as often as you do it, you do this in remembrance of me. So it didn't say every month,
right?
But because we're institutionalized, if we do something other than the norm, then we feel like we've sinned. And that's the danger there. And that's what I'm saying. So we can't lock God into a box that he operates a certain way. But we do know he operates according to the word. And I think that's my point. And so yes, we do need the altar call or altar prayer, however you do it.
Right.
You know, but don't lock it into just God moving at that altar. You feel what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. So I agree with you, but I just want to say that.
And I just want to add to what you're saying. Really, truthfully, I don't care what you do, how you do it. The bottom line is understanding that you're forgiven. so you should forgive others. Understanding that you've been saved by grace, so you should show others grace. Understand that God demonstrated his love for you, and while you were yet a sinner, Christ died for you, and showing that same love. And I think many times we complicate stuff, and we just forget the fact, just show grace and mercy to people. Love people. And as I tell my members, they can tell you, I tell you, okay, if you have somebody hard to deal with, love the hell out of them. And literally, love the hell out of them. Why? Because we've got to understand, we cannot lose the fact that God just wants us to love others just like he loved us. So however you express that, however you do that, is how you do it. As long as your spirit is right, your heart is right, and what you do.
Right.
You know, and I believe as a church, that's what we've got to get back to. The simplicity of it all. That, guess what? Just love people. Just look at them for who God can allow them to be, or for who God made them to be. Love. You know, and let love be what it's going to be. That was something that the church where I pastored in St. Mary, that they did when I got there. Because some pastors, you know, we did change some things, but there was one thing that we still do till today. It's called congregational greetings. Middle of worship, we go out, you get up out your seat and you just go greet people. I said, we can't lose this.
Right.
We got to keep this. Why? Because fellowship. That's why we're here. You know, so it's just keeping those things that we know that God has ordained and promoted, and do it to the best of our ability, and let God handle the rest. Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say that a lot of it too comes from just, I'd say start young. When our kids in school, some teachers leave a stigma with them. You can't read, you can't talk well, you can't whatever. And then when they either want to come to church or do come, then the church may say, oh, you got to get up and read. We don't, you don't push people to be, you just love them and give them the word, and in time, God will push, God will guide them to do. But a lot of times they feel that they're expected to do this, that, and the other. They got to know this in the Bible. They got, and people in the church force them to think they have to do that, and we run them out of the church.
Give that impression.
Right, and
knowing that we don't
even
know
a
that.
little child, they'll come, and then all of a sudden you got to know this, you got to, and then they get fearful because they still young in Christ. So we got to nurture them.
Amen. Amen. But here's what I want to do. I want to give. I know we can do this all day, but this is what I want to do. I want to thank Pastor Jack and Pastor Woods for what they have done. And we're not all the way done, but we're almost done. And here's what I want. I want Brother Senegal to come up now, and I want him in the area of finances. If anybody in here might have a question, general question about the area of finances, and then maybe you can talk to him after, however you want to do it. I'm going to ask him to come up now, and if anybody has any questions as it relates to finances, I'm going to ask him to answer those questions at this time. There we go.
When it comes to, prioritizing paying off debt versus, investing for your future, how would you manage that? Because sometimes, would you try to pay off everything before you try to invest, or would you do a little bit of both at the same time, or,
Well, the first thing you got to do is pay God. Number one, once you do that, and it's kind of a loaded question depending on how much debt you have. You know what I mean? Because you should pay God, and you should always pay yourself. You should be saving something. But depending on if you're so deep in, you know what I mean? It depends. So I have to I'd have to sit with you and see. I'm just talking generally, right? To see what you have. But you have to have a plan. And that plan might be a little different for different people depending on what they have. Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah, but you're on the right track. You should pay God, pay yourself, and then start paying off some of the little debts you have. Depending on, sometimes you may have to restructure it. It just depends on what it is. Yeah, okay, but you need a plan. To do nothing is it's not
No
an
plan.
excuse.
Yeah.
You can't do nothing because you're just going to continue getting it. The first thing you got to do is stop spending and stop making more debt. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Does that help a little bit? Yeah, okay.
guess what is some general, like resources to, I mean, because what would be some general resources that we can look at that would help to, I guess, give us knowledge that you would recommend with finances?
You mean in, like personal finances?
Your personal.
That's a tough question because it depends on if you're talking about in the area of you know, other than biblical principles, you know, tithing and things like that. You're talking about like sources out there to read or something like that, or
I said very vague. Well, I guess more of the kind of like both of them that holds true to the biblical principles that we as believers. I know, I mean, like Larry Burkett, different people, but it's, you know, we are so like unlearned towards finances that it really affects us.
and we don't like to read stuff. You know, we don't like. Well, for biblical, one thing I would suggest is number one.